Good afternoon. My name is Jeff Jepson. I'm a senior air quality specialist in the compliance branch of the Air Quality Management Division of Northern Nevada Public Health. Today we are hosting a workshop on dust control, specifically on dust control permit requirements in Washoe County. The workshop will consist of a 30 to 40 minute presentation, followed by a question and answer period and the opportunity for discussion. The workshop is in a webinar format. The presentation will be recorded. If you drop out early, the AQMD plans to make the presentation recording available as a resource on the AQMD website. All attendees' microphones are currently muted. If you have a question or comment, please use the raise hand function and you will be unmuted after the presentation. You can also type any questions into the chat. Please be respectful with any information added to the chat and any comments or questions. Any attendee who does not abide by Northern Nevada Public Health's customer conduct policy may be ejected from the webinar. With those items said, I will turn things over to our air quality specialist, Timothy Rosario, who will be making the presentation. Thank you for your interest and participation.
Thank you, Jeff. Good afternoon and welcome everyone. As Jeff said, my name is Timothy Rosario, air quality specialist in the compliance branch. And this is the AQMD's first compliance assistant workshop of 2025 on the topic of dust control. Before we get to dust control, I wanted to read the Air Quality Management Division mission statement. The Air Quality Management Division is dedicated to the protection of air quality and the safeguard of public health for all of Washoe County through the development and implementation of effective programs and regulations while supporting economic growth, community partnerships, and environmental justice. Here at the AQMD, we have 4 branches. Our monitoring division monitors air pollution levels, and our planning department compares that data with EPA standards. They work with our permitting branch to develop and implement strategies, and our compliance branch seeks to ensure that these strategies are being followed. Jeff and myself here represent the compliance branch, and it is the compliance branch that conducts dust control inspections. We don't just do dust control inspections, however. We wanted to note that we also complete inspections at various stationary sources such as gas stations, paint booths, various manufacturing facilities, as well as also inspecting asbestos abatements and demolitions as well. Our agenda for today's workshop will include the following: a discussion of the purpose of a dust control permit, discuss the kinds of projects that require a dust control permit and how to apply for one, and discuss some of the ways to stay in compliance with the dust control regulations found in the District Board of Health Regulations 040.030. Before we look at what dust control permits are, I wanted to talk for a minute on why dust control is important. Dust is classified under what is called particulate matter, specifically classified as PM10. There are various short and long-term health effects breathing in particulate matter. Short-term effects can include coughing, wheezing, and aggravated asthma, while long-term effects can include more serious things like lung damage, lifelong respiratory disease, and can even lead to premature death due to heart and lung disease. These long-term effects are especially dangerous because we may not notice the danger at first, and you may not feel the full effect until many years down the road. Oops. Here's a look at some of the history of dust control regulations in Washoe County. In the late 1980s, this geographic area was designated as non-attainment for PM10 by the EPA. Wintertime inversions affected by wood-burning devices was identified as a major contributor to this. However, dust control was another category that also needed regulations to demonstrate emissions reductions to get back into attainment. We are now in a maintenance plan to demonstrate to the EPA that we will not go back to non-attainment. Part of the way that we do this is by adopting and enforcing regulations to control dust. Current dust control regulations, which come from the National Ambient Air Quality Standards, were adopted and made effective in Washoe County starting on November 1st of 2002. The purpose of the dust control program and regulations as laid out in our regulations state that our purpose is to limit particulate material emissions into the ambient air from any property, operation, or activities that may serve as a fugitive dust source. The effect of this regulation shall be to minimize the amount of PM10 emitted into the ambient air as a result of the impact of human activities by requiring measures to prevent, reduce, or mitigate particulate matter emissions. So, do you need a dust control permit? A dust control permit must be applied for and obtained prior to the commencement of a dust generating activity. The question then is, do you need a permit? The dust control permit program is primarily designed for new construction activities, and there are some activities that are exempt from needing a dust control permit, such as dust generating activities that are already associated with a stationary source permit, dust generating activities that are less than 1 acre in size, things like playing on a ball field, basic landscaping maintenance, and also agriculture. It is important to note that all dust generating activities are subject to the dust control regulations, regardless if whether or not they need a dust control permit. This flowchart found on our website is a helpful and simple way to determine if a dust control permit is needed. If there is an activity that is greater than 1 acre of dirt being disturbed, and this dust generating activity is not under one of the exemptions that was previously listed, you will need a dust control permit. How to apply for a dust control permit. Applications should be submitted to the Air Quality Management Division at least 10 business days or 2 weeks prior to the commencement of work or expiration of a current permit to ensure adequate processing time. All applications require the following to be deemed complete: a filled out application. You can find this form on our website, ourcleanair.com. A site map that includes project boundaries and clearly defines the area of disturbance. Any additional information that you feel is pertinent to the scope of work, for example, grading or phasing maps, or even photos, and then the appropriate fee as set by the District Board of Health. Our preference is for that to be made online, but there are several options for making that payment. I wanted to spend some time talking about site map that should be submitted, as this tends to be part of the application that has the most confusion with it. For the site map that is submitted in the application, all areas of disturbance should be included. If there is open, disturbed, or exposed dirt anywhere in a location that's associated with that project, it should be included on the site map. These could include other areas such as haul or access roads, dirt roads that equipment are going to frequently need to use in order to get on and off the project. This could be stockpile areas where there is dirt or material being stored that could potentially cause emissions, and then also staging areas where material is being stored, even if it's on a separate parcel. As long as it's associated with that same project, it needs to be included in the area of disturbance. Any dirt disturbance associated with the project should be included in the project acreage and on the map. All right, the best and easiest way to create a site map for your application is going to the Washoe Regional Mapping System website. You can go on there, find the area in which your project is happening, go over to the Tools section. You can go ahead and select the Measure by Polygon tool, and you can use that to outline all the areas of the project. And then if you go over to Units and select Acres, it goes ahead and calculates the acreage for you. What you can do with this is go ahead and take a screenshot and then include it in your application. If you do have any questions on whether or not you're not sure which areas to include, or maybe there's something on your project where you're unsure of whether or not it needs to be permitted, please feel free to give us a call or send us an email, and we would love to answer that question for you and help you figure out what needs to be permitted. We should also note that if there are separate areas that you need to put on the map, you'll need to take multiple screenshots. One last thing to mention on the application, please make sure that the after hours contacts that are listed on the application are in fact the personnel best suited to be contacted with any dust related issues. We put this on here just because if there are any questions about the site or if an inspector needs to contact someone about the site with some issues that are going on, it is really helpful if the person listed as the contact is going to be the person who understands what's going on at that project, who's available to help, and who can get the correct information in the most direct manner. Just want to make sure that we're being the most efficient, so we're not wasting your time or our time. Also wanted to note that the applicant listed on the dust control permit is the party ultimately responsible for dust control on the permitted ground. All right, so how to submit your application. Applications can be submitted with the following methods. On the Acela One Citizen Access website, you can find detailed instructions at our website at ourcleanair.com. You could also email your application to aqmddust@nnph.org. We also have a Dropbox at our in-person location right outside of our office in Building B at the Washoe County facility, or you could mail it to the following address. All right, now getting into dust control permit compliance. The owner and/or operator of an active dust control permit is required to maintain compliance with the dust control permit conditions and the DBOH regulations 24 hours per day, 7 days a week. Dust control needs to be occurring not just during the week, not just while there are workers on site, but all the time, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Here's a quick summary of the main items that we will discuss to help you stay in compliance with a dust control permit. Broken them down into some of the main areas, and then we will explain the following in more detail here in a minute. But first, obviously, needing to obtain a dust control permit. And with that, please make sure that the dust control permit is on site, dust control sign has been posted, and that daily dust logs are being kept, or at least started, before breaking ground. So we'd love to see those things happen before the work starts. Another big area, obviously, controlling fugitive dust. Evaluate site soil frequently for dry, loose, and/or powdery ground. Prevent track out, and something I'm going to bring up several times in this presentation, stabilize as you go. Renewing dust control permits in a timely fashion. Please remember that dust control permits expire after 18 months, and the AQMD will attempt to send a courtesy expiration notice at least 30 days prior to expiration, but please remember that as the holder of the permit, you are ultimately responsible for making sure you're keeping track of when that date is and getting in a renewal application in a timely fashion. Now we're going to go into some greater depth on what the AQMD inspectors will be looking for during these compliance inspections. We'll start with the dust control permit sign requirements. The owner and/or operator shall erect an informational sign near the main entrance to the project site where it can be easily observed by the public and the AQMD. The sign shall be installed prior to breaking ground and shall remain in place for the duration of the project. Please make sure that the sign is not tucked away at the back of the project or somewhere where it's not easily visible, but that it's out in front of the project by whatever the main road is near the project so that the public and inspectors can find it easily. It just makes it a lot easier that way, and then also then it fulfills its intended use. There may be a situation in which we ask you to move it, to a location that is more proper. Here's an example of a possible sign template that you could use. This one is out in front of the project and right on the main road. It has the project name, the permittee name, the dust control permit number, the project acreage, the expiration date, the phone number of the responsible official, and the AQMD phone number. One note here is that if a project goes longer than 18 months and the dust control permit needs to be renewed, please remember to update the sign with the new permit number, the new expiration date. And then if there are any contacts that change over the course of the project, specifically that phone number for the responsible official, please update that phone number as well. All right, the dust control permit and the dust control logs. The owner and or operator of an active dust control permit must complete a daily dust control log, which should be kept on the project site with the active dust control permit. As long as you have personnel on site, the daily dust logs and dust control permit need to be available. Please find a way for them to be kept on site somewhere in a binder. Maybe there's a truck that is always on site, like a water truck or a certain personnel. You could keep it in there, or it's possible to use a QR code on the dust control sign. This template can be found attached to an approved dust control permit issued by the AQMD. Please use this, and obviously feel free to make lots of copies of it so that you can put that directly into your binder as a daily dust log. Here's an example of a daily dust log that I filled out. This is just a made up construction site, but I tried to fill it out to give an example. Please remember the point of using these dust logs are to be a tool in reminding you to assess the condition of your soil on your project site. This is supposed to be something that actually helps you. Please do not just put down the ground is damp and there's no visible dust every single day and have it be the same thing all the time. We know there are times when the site dries out, and we want to see that there were potential issues such as dry ground or visible dust, and that you have then taken actions to correct these items. You can see on the corrective action side, I have a handful of things such as a water truck or running a street sweeper or paving an access road, or maybe there's a day with really high winds and personnel had to stop work. You could put that down there as well. Here's an example of different potential conditions of project soil. On the left there, we have crusted soil that is stable, dry soil, and then loose or powdery soil. Obviously, that soil is not stable. All right, now we get to the main goal of dust control, and that is the visible emissions prohibition. The standard laid out in the DBOH regulations is the owner and or operator of a source engaging in dust generating activities shall not allow visible fugitive dust emissions for a period or periods accumulating more than 5 minutes any hour. This will be the main thing that we're looking for, no matter what the source. Stabilization. I'm going to talk for a little bit about stabilization. This is the biggest key in controlling fugitive dust emissions. Keeping your project soil stable so that when disturbances such as wind or equipment come through, fugitive emissions are then avoided. You need to determine what controls will be used to mitigate any potential fugitive dust emissions at the beginning of the project. And then again, stabilize as you go. There's a handful of things that I think should be considered, such as what is the condition of the soil? What kind of soil are we working with here? Are the controls that we have being used adequate for the size and the nature of the site? If using water as a source of mitigation, how many water trucks do you have available and how far away is the source of the water? Do you have to go a long distance and that really cuts down on how effective your water trucks are? Please consider that you should not open up more project ground than you have the resources to be able to control. Can access be restricted to exposed dirt after it has been crusted or stabilized? If you did have to open up a lot of ground and it's not going to be used for something in a long time, can you keep equipment off of it so that you're not having to constantly go back and restabilize it? Is the site ready for a wind event? Obviously, we know this is important in Nevada. And then remember, the goal is to take preventative measures to control fugitive dust emissions, not start to respond after emissions have already started. Here is a list of potential control measures listed in our regulations. This is a number of options. This list is not exclusive. There can be other options as well. What you choose for your project to use is up to you, as long as it is effective. These are possible methods that could be effective, but really you need to determine the nature of your site and figure out what would work the best. One last note, in stabilization, there are other potential sources of fugitive dust that people sometimes forget to think about, such as unpaved parking lots and staging areas, unpaved hauler access roads, open areas that have been open, but now nothing's going on there, or open storage piles, such as large stockpiles. Each of these potential dust sources must be stabilized because the owner and operator shall not allow any visible fugitive dust emissions for a period or periods accumulating more than 5 minutes in any hour. And that includes these areas, not just the main part of the project site. All right, talk for a minute on wind events. As we all know, Northern Nevada can get strong, unpredictable winds, and in the desert here, ground can dry out very quickly. Again, the key here is let's make sure that the site is prepared and using controls effectively before the wind comes. Stabilize as you go and don't open up more ground than you have the ability to control for. The AQMD does often try to send out courtesy notifications when we know that potential high wind events are coming. We try to do that as often as we can, but also please remember it's the permittee's responsibility to be looking out for those things and taking appropriate measures to prepare. All right, track out. Definition of track out: any and all bulk materials that have adhered to and agglomerate on exterior surfaces of motor vehicles and or equipment that have fallen onto a paved public roadway. When compliance staff in air quality is looking at track out, we are looking for track out that causes visible emissions or that we have determined is a high potential to cause visible emissions after it dries out or in heavier traffic or in during wind events. Some track out work practices really are two main areas. Installing and maintaining a suitable track out control device to try to keep that track out from getting on the road. And then a plan for if you do get track out on the road, how is it going to get cleaned up? Biggest thing with track out controls, making sure that they're effective. It's not just a box to check that, hey, we have this pad that we threw out there and so we're good. It's putting it out there and then seeing, okay, is this actually effective in keeping some of this track out from going out on the road? If this is not working, some other things that you might need to consider: a longer runway for your track out pad, more rock or longer pad so that there's more opportunity for that dirt to be knocked off. Or you might consider making your road that goes through your site more stable so that there's not as much mud and dirt being picked up by those trucks on their way out. If the track out control being used is not effective, different methods or types of controls need to be employed. That's the big thing there. All right, track out mitigation. If your site does have some track out issues, please make sure that measures are in place to mitigate potential dust issues. Whatever method of mitigation is chosen should be used as often as necessary to correct the issue. For example, a street sweeper may need to run every day, multiple times a day until track out issues have been mitigated. There isn't a requirement for a sweeper to be used once a day or once a week. Really, it should be used as often as should be needed. If we're doing a really good job of track out control, you might not ever have to use a street sweeper. That would be kind of ideal, right? So again, we want to make sure that we're using things that are effective for helping mitigate that track out, but then also the visible emissions. Also remember when dealing with track out to remember the SWIP requirements, even though that's not something that we regulate, we want to make sure that we're following those and not just washing a bunch of dirt off the road into storm drains. All right, last little major thing here, renewing a dust control permit. A common compliance issue that we run into is some larger projects that take multiple years to finish. And then the dust control permit expires and the applicant forgot to renew it. Please remember, a dust control permit will expire 18 months after it is issued. The AQMD compliance staff does attempt to send courtesy expiration notices to the applicant at least 30 days before the permit is due to expire. But of course, it is ultimately the applicant's responsibility to mark down that date and know when that is. If the project has not been completed, the permit will need to be renewed. In order to renew a dust control permit, the applicant needs to submit another dust control permit application and select the renewal box in the applicant information section. If a dust control permit does expire and the project has not been completed, all dust generating activities must stop, and a renewal needs to be applied for as soon as possible. Dust generating activities may resume after the new permit has been issued, not after the application is in, after the new permit has been issued. We want to make sure that the work is continuing. Obviously, you don't want the work to have to stop and for there to be an interruption there and for to have to send people home. We don't want the project to stop either. So please, let's make sure we're paying special attention to when these projects might expire and paying attention to whether or not you're going to need a renewal and getting that in a timely fashion. Please communicate with us. We'd love to help you with any questions that you might have concerning this. All right, finally, closing a dust control permit. Permit may be closed after the project site has been permanently stabilized. A dust control permit may be closed if the dirt disturbance at a project is less than 1 acre and the rest of the project has been permanently stabilized. The AQMD will come out and complete a final inspection to verify this after the completion notice has been given. But last thing here, kind of talking about what it means to be permanently stabilized, there are a couple of options for this, most common being structures have been built up, parking lots, roads have been paved, final landscaping is done. But while it's not ideal, we do understand that there are times when projects stall or things just don't continue. So there could be a case of there's a large amount of open ground that then needs to be stabilized. There are some options for this, such as laying rock down or revegetating. Also, a possible solution, soil enclosure like a palliative material. However, know that with all of these things, the solution and the material must be effective, right? Something like hydroseeding might take years to actually take effect. And so that might actually not be a stabilization solution for right now. A palliative material, might not actually stay down during large wind events. And so, if you're spending money on these things, we need to make sure that these things are effective, because if they're not effective, then we're going to require something else be done. Also note that if you have to do something like this, it might be important to restrict access to the site so that whatever is done to stabilize the soil isn't broken up by other vehicles or equipment or recreational dirt bikes, things like that. All right, final summary. Some of the common compliance issues we see: failure to obtain a permit prior to the start of the dust generating activity. Permitted ground does not contain all the areas of disturbance. Daily dust logs not being kept, or the permit not on site. Insufficient mitigation equipment, or the project ground not being stabilized as work goes, and therefore visible emissions caused in disturbances such as large wind events. Please visit our website, ourcleanair.com. You can click on the dust tab and check out lots of resources that we have for dust control. You can find all kinds of forms and helps there, as well as links to the DBOH dust control regulations. All right, we've reached the end. There's our email and phone number, but if there are any questions at this time, I'll have to field those.
Thank you, Timothy. Yeah, we've opened it up now for any questions, comments, concerns. Please use the raise hand function and we can unmute you. You're also welcome to type anything into the chat. If you're not comfortable speaking up here, reach out to us at one of those contact methods that Timothy listed, and they're still up on the screen. All right, it doesn't look like we're seeing anything. I'll keep it open for another minute here, and then we'll sign off. All right, I think we'll go ahead and wrap it up. Thank you very much for attending, everyone. Please reach out if you have any questions. We appreciate your coming to our webinar today. Thank you.